Hello and welcome to Early Years TV with me, Katy Brodie. Today we are discussing swimming, but not just learning how to swim, but also the sensory and many other benefits of swimming with children. I'm delighted to be joined by Jo Wilson, who is the founder of Aqua Sensory, who has created a unique programme which provides a rich mixture of sensory exploration and early development opportunities. She says, "We take dry land therapies, refine them and bring them alive in the pool." And I know that Jo's passionate about sharing all this ethos and learning plans with people, so you can find those online. And she's taken Aqua Sensory around the world, including the World Infant Aquatic Conference in Australia, which sounds amazing, and to China. And now she's on Early Years TV. A very warm welcome, Jo Wilson.
Oh, thanks, Kathy. That's lovely. It's really a great pleasure to be here. And it's one of those things that you're always watching from the other end. So it's lovely. So thank you for inviting me. That's really nice. So
I was absolutely delighted that you were able to come on, because when I was looking at your website and looking at your beautiful Facebook page as well, I was just struck by the things that you were doing with children. But let's start at the very beginning. Obviously, learning to swim, it's a brilliant asset for children. It's something that we would want all our children to do. But at what age do you think is the best time to start children swimming?
Well, I always think that it's about when the child and the parent is ready. And how are we to say what number that should be? Now, babies, of course, can swim from a very early age, 6 weeks or when their cord is healed. But it's very much about them swimming perhaps at home or in the bath, or choosing a very, very much a specialised pool that is warm and has the perfect sensory environment. So I don't think we should really be putting an age on it. I think it's down to the parent and particularly the child, and for them really to sort of like take the lead, for the nurse to actually say, well, it has to be this age.
Yeah. And of course that is something, isn't it? You've touched on there already, that you have parents in the pool with you. What do you do with parents? How do you teach parents to teach their children to swim in the pool?
Well, that's the really nice thing. It is very much a connection from the start. And if we think about what's going on in our world today, it's so busy, isn't it? There's just so much going on, all that noise. I always say the pool is the perfect place, because naturally there's no distractions. You can't take your phone in the pool, for example. So that's really nice. And of course, you've got everything is natural. You've got your natural benefits of skin to skin, lovely close contact, touch, and also you've got the perfect communication and bonding as well. So really, the pool is the perfect place for parent education. It's like that environment for relationships. So really, we don't really see ourselves as swim teachers. We see ourselves as facilitators, as educators, to really stand back and allow the child to bond with the parent and very much explore the water in their way.
Yeah, and that's a very different pedagogy than most swim teachers, isn't it? Because it is usually we would teach your child to swim in X number of weeks, isn't it? So, I mean, how's that different pedagogy come about?
Well, I started to sort of look at traditional swim lessons. I've been a swim teacher for many years, and it's very mechanical. We define our swimming very much as outcomes, set milestones, it's distances. I don't mean it's very like push and pull. And we were finding that our children's development was changing, and actually the pool, you can actually do so much more in terms of early learning and education. And why not use the pool in so many different ways? Now, there's so much going on outside in dry land in terms of all the sensory activities, music, signing and singing. Well, why can't we bring those into the pool? The water is the most perfect multi-sensory environment in its very nature. So I started to think, hang on a minute, we're missing a trick here. Why don't we start to introduce sensory activities into the most multi-sensory natural environment? So that's how it started.
Yeah. Is there any reason for doing that, for making those changes now particularly?
Well, we started to think you've got to adapt to your children. And I think having a program where the child takes the lead, I think we're not unique in saying that just because we're from a swimming or water base, that our children's development is changing. And I think everybody is finding this. The expression I always say is the way that our children, the way that we move, play, talk, everything is changing in terms of their development. And I think we have to respond to that. In the pool, we're finding our children perhaps can't climb out like they used to. They haven't got the upper body strength. Maybe they haven't got the same listening skills. They haven't got the same motor control. The water's very transparent, and we're finding that there's a lot of balance and coordination. So the great thing about the water, it's very transparent and very, very unique. And I have in a program that is an early years approach is again really unique to bring that into the pool.
Yeah. And you do talk a lot, don't you, about the developmental areas of children rather than we're doing swimming. And when I read the website, when I look at your Facebook page, I'm reminded very much of early years language. That's the sort of language that you're using. And you list all sorts of benefits, don't you? Not just learning to swim, and even not just physical development, actually.
Yeah, I think that is just one part of it. Swimming is so great. Again, it naturally crosses all the domains: physical, emotional, social. So why not have a program that encompasses all those different benefits? We look at the pool almost like, yes, an early years setting. And in actual fact, we don't always recruit swimming teachers. We actually recruit early years professionals. I'll give you an example. My centre manager has come from a nursery background. So we're bringing the early years framework into the pool. So when you look at the benefits, we're not just looking at associated swim benefits like breath control, rotations. We're actually looking at the benefits of maybe early literacy. What are the signs and signals round a pool? Perhaps it's about learning about their world. Well, they're naturally learning about their bodies. Can they make big splashes, small splashes? What floats? What sinks? What physical development? So it's all there in terms of their early learning, their speech development, maths, counting. Can they count 1, 2, 3 before they dive in? And they're learning this at very, very early ages from babies, are picking up lots and lots of really lovely natural cues as well from their parents, because they're with their parents, they're imitating from their parents. So that's the really nice thing of being in a very nice close contact with the pool as well.
Yeah. And I'm imagining as well, when I sort of think about parents with children in the swimming pool, emotionally you're very close, aren't you? I mean, all that sort of social and emotional development is right there, isn't it?
That's right. You don't have to. I mean, first of all, you're holding the child, but you don't have to have almost like verbal language. The child is actually with the parent, and what's really important, you don't have to almost like teach mindfulness. I think there's a lot of programs out there, because in actual fact, just being in the pool together, having that close contact, you have to almost be present. Can't drop your child. You have to have that awareness. You are naturally in a perhaps, a skin to skin, touchy feely environment, a very tactile environment. We don't have to introduce concepts. They're very, very much naturally there. Natural movement, natural mindfulness, natural connections, natural presence. So that's the benefit for swimming teachers and early years, to actually look at perhaps the water a little bit more as an element of bringing that into their early years environment.
Yeah. Now, obviously, most settings don't have a swimming pool. I imagine some might, but most people don't. So how can we take that learning then, that using water in a very different sensory way rather than just our water tray, how can we take that learning into early years settings?
Well, first of all, we think of the water as almost the teacher. And if you look at the water and you think, and you say to the children, actually, let's take it back a stage. Just getting simply changed is a transition, isn't it? And children have to be a certain amount of independence, first of all. So you've got all of those learning outcomes. Secondly, if you looked at the water and you said to the children, how does the water feel? straight away they're being able to maybe internalize their feelings, and you might get some children really big splashes. You might get some children being really soft and gentle and wanting to stroke and tickle. So it isn't always just sprinkling the water and splashing and kicking it. We're using the water in lots and lots of different ways. It's that emotional connection to water. And I think that's really important because we're teaching children from a very early age to value our most important natural resource on our planet. And we have to have water for life, don't we? And there's a lot of awareness at the moment that we're actually not respecting our water. So how about early years actually bringing water in, not just as a water tray because it's something to play with, but actually it's there to respect. And if we respect water, we respect each other. You can respect our social play. I always say the water becomes our teacher.
Yeah. I just think that would be a lovely thing to do with the paddling pool, as you say, rather than just jumping in and splashing out. And let's be honest, that tires very quickly sometimes with some children, doesn't it? But to really sort of investigate that and use that as a teaching opportunity, actually have the water as a teaching opportunity, is great. So when you're talking about swimming and working with the water, it's like a new language almost, isn't it? You've transformed that into an early years language almost.
Yeah, that's right. I think in order to get across your values and your ethos, it's very much a parent support and education program. So if you're explaining that the water has benefits in terms of early learning, why call it a swimming pool? We call our setting an aquatic classroom. Oh, wow. So straight away, parents actually realise there's so much more to the pool than simply learning to swim. And I'll give you an example. When we educate our parents, you can see here, we write poems, and this is our aquatic classroom poem, which again really appeals to the parents. We're not telling them off. We're not saying you don't do this and you don't do that. We're using lovely words that's all about their hearts and listening with their ears and having presence. And we write an awful lot as really lovely poems for parents. So that's one of our early years language. Another one is that we always have like a tried, tested and tuned approach, which is all about reflective practice. So that's like another example of our early years language that we're bringing into the pool.
So what do you mean by tuned in that then? Tried, tested and tuned. I'm assuming you don't mean tuned as in, well, I assume you do music in the pool, but how do you mean by tuned in that particular phrase?
When we look at all our equipment and resources and our whole environment, I think it's really important to come from the eye of the child, and rather than just simply put everything in the pool, we try everything. Now, this is going to sound a little bit extreme, but we actually even get on the equipment ourselves. Would we actually expect a child to stand on a water raft when have we ever tried it? We actually swim under rainbows and look up and see what from the child's perspective. So I think, we put ourselves really in the eyes and the bodies of the child, and we look at the resources and we really carefully choose our resources as well. And sometimes, of course, some things work really well, and the tuned is actually fine tuning. So when we do it again, or when we educate other swim professionals or early years, they're actually getting a program and resources and information that has been tried, tested and fine-tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the idea of taking it right back and seeing what the child sees as well. That's just amazing.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important that the foundation stone for our program is child respect. And if you have parents coming to you, and obviously they're taking their little ones and they're getting them changed in the changing rooms, and sometimes it can be quite a rushed process. If you're really showing the parent to slow down, to really tune in and to read baby's body cues, at that moment in time, even at the nappy change and at the swim change, we're saying to parents, is your baby saying yes? It might be your lesson time. It might be the time that you've scheduled, but is baby actually saying yes, that they are really ready to participate? Are we giving our little ones permission? And quite often, we sometimes are looking at our little ones as objects or projects. Are we actually coming to the pool for them, or are we actually doing it ourselves? So again, come in with that different mindset, and with our parents, what we're finding is they're much more mindful, they're more present, because they're tuned in from the very start, from the changing room, as they come into the pool. So we're really slowing down that journey. We're allowing them to be together. There's a lot of space in the pool and time, and allowing what comes up naturally, really. So 2 examples of like our parent messages is that we don't just use our senses to survive, we use our senses to thrive. So one of our other parent messages is that forget about Wi-Fi. There's no better connection than in the pool.
And I think a lot of that is very transferable out of your aquatic classroom as well. If you are talking about changing nappies and being with children and getting their permission before you change clothes, whether that's because you're putting on coats because you're going outside or whether they've got wet. Yeah.
But the great thing is that we're working with the parents. So from the very, very early age, from babies, we're getting across fantastic parent education messages from a very, very early start. So I do think that we've got all the physical benefits, we've got the social benefits, the emotional benefits. So it is very much an encompassing program and package, really.
Yeah. Is that what you find parents say to you as well? Do you think parents appreciate how much learning actually goes on in the pool in your aquatics classroom?
They probably don't appreciate it, but actually I always think if the joy, it's like a spiral of joy. The process is reciprocal. Exercise naturally increases endorphins and feel-good hormones, so actually sometimes it's not really for us to stand back and judge and to educate. It's very much a natural process that happens naturally, and when it's not forced, when children are in their flow, they're learning. So the more we can actually see ourselves not as teachers to really facilitate this natural process, then actually parents don't need to be educated, because the whole process will be educating themselves naturally, if that makes sense. We don't have to teach. We do not have to teach our babies to swim. That's my biggest message. Stop teaching babies. Babies know how to swim naturally. It's the most natural environment, water, the amniotic fluid. We don't have to teach them.
Yeah. I think there's still quite a lot of fear around sort of having children in water, isn't there? And about some of the dangers that are inherent with that. But as you say, you're not going to let go of your baby anyway, are you? So
No. And there is, unfortunately, all different ways that you can introduce children to water and babies to water, and very much different programs that could be seen as quite forceful, survival programs. And we're very much based on natural and allowing the child to move naturally through the water. And the more the child becomes the active participant rather than us pulling and pushing and them being passive, again, they're going to learn so much quicker. So, yes, we've got to really start to stand back and allow children more time, more space. They need to play more. And the water is the most natural environment for them.
Absolutely. And what would your top tip be for any parents watching today who are thinking, actually, I should maybe take my child swimming? What would your top tips be for getting to the pool or getting them in the water even?
Yeah. Well, I think there's so many opportunities for water. Yes, there's swimming pools at home, in the bath, and all different types of water as well, rivers and lakes. I mean, it's around us. So again, let's not mindset just to a swimming pool, but having the right environment is really important, and having the right time and of day as well when the child is really wanting to learn. And if it is a swimming pool and it is a baby, then to look at a very nice warm environment, a nice neutral environment as well, where the noise is controlled. And swimming pools traditionally can have a lot of strong smells, for example, and because it's a multi-sensory environment, it can actually have a lot of triggers for a lot of children. So we've got to be looking from a swim teaching, a professional point of view, how can we create our environments as the best sensory harmony environments than we can? So everything is in balance. I'll give you an example. Something could be very, very simple. We educate our parents maybe to bring something familiar from home, maybe their favourite smell, shampoo. So again, it's going back into the emotional centre of their brain where they're bringing, something that they really love from home to the swimming pool. So the first time, even before they got into the pool, they've got beautiful smells. That's just an example how you can bring sensory into your environments.
Yes, of course, because as you say, swimming pools, even now I can think what the smell is like and the noise as well. So yes, just to be aware of that. Okay, so that's for parents and maybe going to a swimming pool or using water at home. But what about for practitioners or educators who are watching today? How can we use some of that knowledge about sensory awareness in our settings?
Sure. Well, maybe just look at maybe the resources that could be introduced. Now, traditional resources for swimming pools are very standard: dive sticks, dive rings. Do we have to use them? Look at resources that float, look at resources that sink, look at something that midline. I mean, when you look at all our photos and our resources, everything is designed to inspire and provoke curiosity and imagination. So again, it's really appealing for our children. They're so excited to come and explore. They want to learn. It's not just a whole pool of water. It's set up in little different stations. So, they can have a splash station, and then they can have a little dive station, but everything's set up at their level as well and at their developmental stage, which I think is really, really important. I think sometimes we look at everything as one level, whereas at Aqua Sensory we look at very much layers. What can we set up for our sensory seekers? What can we set up for our sensory avoiders? How can we not hold children as much so they are actually exploring their own natural movement in the pool? It does take a little bit of a different mind shift, but once you've got it and once you start shifting into an early years mindset, suddenly that's it. There's almost like that penny drop, that light bulb moment. And that's the one thing that I absolutely love, taking a swimming teacher out of that little swimming teaching box and then popping them into the early years box. And it's like, oh, wow.
yeah. I think that is so true, isn't it? And I think that's quite transferable the other way as well, that early practitioners, rather than just seeing a paddling pool as to fill up with water and, they can go and have a splash in that, really think about what you're putting in there in terms of resources. What do you want the children, the sensory output from that? I think that's be amazing.
Again, it's just a different view, and I think we're learning from the water and we're learning from the child as well. So, that would always be the way that I view things. I'm always standing back, watching. We have a bit of again, an early years language: wait, watch and wonder. That's our little phrase that we always use in the pool, and parents just get it.
And I think very often practitioners are already tuned into making observations, but maybe not with waters quite so much, maybe not just with the paddling pool or with doing some of those things. So yes, I think that's a lovely piece of advice. Thank you very much indeed. Well, there's some brilliant top tips there. So what would your final piece of advice be to everybody who's maybe thinking about going in the pool and using it as an aquatic classroom? What would your piece of advice be to them?
Slow down, don't rush. Come into the pool at the baby's pace, not your pace, and to find your own little bubble in the pool. Forget about everything, forget about the worries, just enjoy the natural sprinkles and find your own little bubble of joy.
Oh, I think that's lovely, bubble of joy. I just think that is so nice. Well, Jo, so many pieces of advice there as well. Some brilliant top tips for both parents and practitioners to take away. Where can people find out more about Aqua Sensory and the lesson plans and the sort of ethos that you have in the water?
Oh, thank you, Kathy. We have a website, aquasensory.com. Lots and lots of videos. We love showing our parents and our activities in the pool on our YouTube site. And on our website, we have a lovely members platform, which is there for aquatic professionals and early years professionals as well. So there's a little place where people can download all our resources, but also we have like this two-way forum and this two-way members, which is lovely because we've just shared our whole ethos online, which is what we're about, really. Sharing and having that reciprocal relationship, because we say together we'll make a difference. You know, it's not just about us. It's about learning and growing and sharing together.
The Facebook's lovely. There's some lovely pictures of babies swimming there. It's just like, oh, they're gorgeous.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the poem and the little video that's on the top tag was created quite a number of years ago. But that, again, was about parents. And it's a little poem for the pool, which I felt was quite, good for today's little messages.
Absolutely. Jo Wilson, thank you so much for joining us today on Early Years TV. It's been a delight talking with you today, and thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and expertise there with us.
Oh, thanks, Kathy. It's been really lovely. Take care.
And I look forward to welcoming everybody to Early Years TV next week.